who controls your electric grid, the governor/industry collaboration behind your rising bills, and a bleak future. So last week, PJM Interconnection, the grid operator controlling electricity for 67 million people across 13 states, including Maryland, held a critical vote. Stakeholders considered 12 different proposals to address the data center crisis driving up your electrical bills. Every single proposal failed. They want you to see a regulatory bureaucracy train wreck. I want you to see something else. I want you to see coordinated industry capture of government. Governor Wes Moore is a key part of a multi-state, multi-level strategy working directly with big tech and the data center industry to deregulate our energy markets, lock in fossil fuel infrastructure, and shift the cost onto Maryland families. This is a pattern you need to watch for, not just with energy, but with every regulatory body where the industry sits at the table as an equal stakeholder and has a stake in the decision making. Let me show you how it works by first explaining who PJM is. So PJM is the regional grid operator for Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Virginia, and 9 other states. Think of them like the air traffic controllers for electricity. They coordinate which power plants run and when power flows to 67 million people. When your BG&E or Pepco bill jumps, that's in part because PJM's decisions are hitting your household budget. But here's the critical thing. PJM is a stakeholder organization. The companies that profit from electricity infrastructure get votes on the rules. Power generators, transmission companies, data centers, they all get a seat at the table alongside consumer advocates and state legislators. In theory, it's balanced. In practice, when corporate interests align, they can block any rule that threatens their profit. And right now, their interest is clear. They want to build data center capacity as fast as possible in order to lock in demand for fracked gas and let ratepayers absorb the cost. That's what happened this week. On November 19th, PJM voted on 12 proposals to regulate how data centers connect to the grid. All 12 of them failed. No consensus, no new rules. And here's where your electrical bill comes in. This summer, BG&E customers saw bills jump $16 per month, nearly $200 per year. Pepco customers saw $14 per month increases. Another 22% increase is coming in June. And Maryland State Senator Katie Fry-Hester, who's worked a lot on this issue, has warned that by 2028, average Maryland families could be paying $70 more per month for their electricity. Where did this come from? PJM's costs for delivering electricity are growing astronomically, and data center demand is the primary driver of that. The grid is buckling. Your bills are rising, and PJM just rejected every proposal to protect you. So here's where it gets interesting and where the pattern gets clear. Governor Moore isn't just responding to the crisis. He inherited a system in Maryland designed to attract data centers. Then he systemically removed every remaining obstacle while coordinating at 3 levels of government. That sounds like a lot, but let me show you on the timeline here. In 2020, Maryland passed, under Governor Larry Hogan, Maryland passed a sales and use tax exemption for data centers, a 10-year tax holiday worth tens of millions of dollars per project. Multiply that by every data center now lining up to build in Maryland, and you're talking about hundreds of millions in foregone revenue with no clean energy requirements, no clean usage requirements. That was the foundation of it all, as it always is in Maryland. Tax breaks without real requirements and real regulation. Giveaways to corporations is a bipartisan and activist agenda. So Moore took office in January of 23, and he immediately accelerated this data center work. In October of 2023, Align Data Centers planned a facility in Frederick County. They requested approval, and Maryland's Public Service Commission denied the request. They wanted a full environmental review. They wanted to understand the energy implications. They wanted a climate impact assessment. They wanted public hearings, all the things we're supposed to have when we put new industry online in the state of Maryland. Align walked away from the project after hearing those demands. Governor Moore publicly expressed his disappointment, and he vowed to create a better regulatory environment for the data center industry. 3 months later, in January 24, Moore delivers. He introduces the Critical Infrastructure Streamlining Act as a top administration priority. The bill, among other things, exempts data center backup generators from PSC review. Moore signs it on May 9th, 2024, and listen to his quote. He says, "This bill is going to supercharge the data center industry in our state so that we can unleash more economic potential and create more good union-paying jobs." In future episodes, we're going to talk about the failure to deliver on that economic potential and those union jobs. But for now, we should understand that his intention was to supercharge the data center industry in our state. 7 months from one company walking away to a whole new state law, that's industry capture of our government with a governor eager to facilitate it. Now, in 2025, this year, Senator Karen Lewis Young and Delegate Brian Crosby introduced a bill requiring an impact study analyzing data centers' effects on energy costs, data centers' energy costs, climate emissions, environmental justice, communities, things we should be studying. Senator Karen Lewis Young said, "Before we repeat some of Virginia's mistakes, I think we need to be very proactive about understanding some of these consequences." The legislature agreed with her and Crosby. They passed the bill. Moore vetoed it this May. Now, let's look at what Moore is doing simultaneously at other levels of government. Layer 1, national coordination. In July of 2025, Moore was elected vice chair of the National Government Association. He joined an energy working group of bipartisan governors pushing federal permitting reform. Listen to his words here. Moore said, "When it comes to energy infrastructure, we need to move from no and slow to yes and now. That's deregulation. Faster permitting means less environmental review, less community review, less opportunity for folks like Taylor, who came on our show a couple of weeks ago to rally her community in order to fight the billionaires that are trying to put a big polluting industry in their neighborhood." Let's talk about layer 2, regional coordination. On September 25th of this year, Moore signed the PJM Governors Collaborative, in which he and 10 other governors agreed to develop joint positions and strategies. Well, in October, we found out what some of those joint positions and strategies look like. Less than a month before the PJM vote, Moore, Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro, New Jersey Governor Murphy, Virginia Governor Youngkin submitted a joint proposal directly with the Data Center Coalition. Here you see the 4 states and the Data Center Coalition in the middle. Well, let's be clear about who the Data Center Coalition is. The Data Center Coalition is the industry lobby representing the data center business. It includes Amazon, AWS, Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Oracle, plus 20 data center operators. This is the lobbying organization for an industry. It is the lobbying organization for the data center organization, and Governor Moore and several other governors issued a joint proposal to fix the energy grid by doing what the Data Center Coalition wants them to do. What did their proposal say? It said, let data centers connect much more quickly to our energy grid, some studies being reduced from 5 to 8 years to 90 to 180 days, as long as they bring their own power. Now, we'll get back to what bring your own power means in a second, but I want to take a moment to talk about a pattern here. Moore cleared the legislative path in Maryland in 2024, and then he coordinated with other governors in PJM, and then he partnered directly with the data center industry at the national level. When your bills spiked in September and this summer, Moore announced $200 million in energy bill rebates, saying Marylanders are deeply frustrated and their frustration is justified. Moore and the other governors know who is getting hurt by this, but they are doing it anyway. So the crux of almost all of the proposals that PJM rejected is bring your own power. Bring your own power proposals require data center operators to provide their own power generation, which kind of sounds good at first. If you're going to run this data center here, you should use your power and not our power. But when we look at what that means, the picture starts to change. In Pennsylvania, the Homer City Energy Campus is under construction, a 4.5 gigawatt natural gas plant, the largest in North America, built specifically for data centers. That's fracked gas from Western Pennsylvania. Talon Energy acquired 2 more gas plants for $3.5 billion explicitly for data center load, and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has fast-tracked over 50 new gas projects in PJM territory. That's what Moore's yes and now permitting reform enables. Not community renewables, but new fracked gas with infrastructure locked in for decades. Meanwhile, Microsoft is restarting 3 Mile Island exclusively for Microsoft. Amazon secured a private deal from the Susquehanna nuclear power plant through 2042. These deals divert capacity from the grid while you pay higher prices for what's left, and they let the data center industry grow running on fracked gas and old nuclear power generators. That's what they mean by yes and now. This isn't market failure. This is the PJM market working exactly as it is designed, serving its corporate stakeholders. Now let's look at some numbers here that are important. 12 is the number of proposals rejected by PJM that were going to address the impact of data centers on energy costs. 90 days is the new regulatory period that Moore and the other governors and the data center industry is suggesting before approval can happen. And 6.7 times is the amount of cost increase for energy provision within the PJM district. These numbers are stunning, and they point to a future that is going to get even worse. But luckily, we have an alternative. What does a people-centered power look like? Well, here's what it looks like. First, we need to replace PJM's corporate stakeholder model with a democratic public control. We do this by having a democratic public grid operator. Maryland should lead mid-Atlantic states to create a publicly governed grid operator, not a stakeholder body where corporations vote, a public institution with elected and community oversight where ratepayers and communities have direct representation. Second, we need a public energy bank. We need to create a Maryland Public Energy Bank to finance renewable energy infrastructure. Third, we need cooperative infrastructure and public power. As much as possible, we need to build small-scale renewables owned by ratepayers and communities. We need to invest in solar cooperatives, community wind, and municipal microgrids. Fourth, we need to restore environmental oversight and reform the tax policy. We need to repeal the Critical Infrastructure Streamlining Act. We need to restore PSC climate review, and we need to end the 2020 tax breaks. Fifth, we should ban new hyperscale data centers and heavily regulate any existing or approved projects that we have here in Maryland. And sixth, this is the big one. If we need to have the tech economy and the AI we deserve. If Maryland needs tech infrastructure and AI capacity to compete in the 21st century, let's build it right. Let's make it small scale, localized, cooperative, and owned by Marylanders, not by big tech corporations. We recently spoke with Taylor Fraser McCollum about the fight in Prince George's County, where more than 20,000 residents signed a petition against a massive data center project. They're not opposed to technology. They're opposed to corporate extraction, to billion-dollar facilities that consume the power that would be used by 90,000 homes, emit diesel fumes that hurt local communities, and provide virtually no local jobs while driving up everyone's electricity bills. The alternative is a cooperative data centers at community scale. Worker-owned tech businesses, open source AI models, serving public needs, education, healthcare, and climate, not corporate surveillance and profit extraction. Public investment in distributed computing infrastructure that strengthens communities instead of extracting from them. Instead of going down this alternative, Moore chose the opposite: maximum scale, minimum oversight, corporate ownership, ratepayer costs. His own words tell the story. He wanted to supercharge the data center industry, and he wants yes and now deregulation. The alternative is clear: democratic public control, ratepayer ownership, environmental oversight and stewardship, public investment serving communities. The question is, which future will we build? Because right now, they're building theirs with your money and your grid, and our bills are going up. That's the pattern. Now we see it. Now we can fight it.